Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with aBlogtoWatch. Please subscribe to our videos on YouTube and like this video if you find it useful. This is a review of a few different versions of the Bulgari Octo Finissimo. A couple years ago, Bulgari came out with the Finissimo version of the popular Octo Collection, and let's just say that means ultra thin. And in this instance, they weren't lying. These watches are just 5 millimeters thick. Right here is the Tourbillon version, and it's upside down. This is the thinnest tourbillon in the world right now. That record seems to be broken every couple of years, but for now, Bulgari has it. The movement inside of this watch is just 1.95 millimeters thick. And it's really gorgeous. This is a completely in-house made movement. This is the caliber 268, the BVL 268. 249 parts, 3 hertz operation, just the time with hours and minutes, and the tourbillon. And you know what they did about this tourbillon, there's a couple of clever things they did. Of course, it's a flying tourbillon, so you don't have a bridge on the top. I believe there's some ceramic ball bearings on the edges that allowed it to be a very flat profile. And this is really just quite lovely. So the Octo Collection was, of course, created by Ariel Adams, and it was absorbed into the Bulgari brand several years ago. And it's really one of the sort of the key, I'll call pillars of Bulgari's men's watches, the Octo. And the Finissimo is the dressier side with its ultra-thin profile. I wanted to compare, for instance, the size of the Finissimo. Again, this is 40 millimeters wide, but because it's more square in shape, it wears larger. So I'm going to show you the normal. This is the chronograph version called the Velocissimo, but you can see here the difference in thickness. So here you have 5 millimeters here. I don't actually have the exact number in front of me. Oh, it's just over 13 millimeters thick. So this is 13 millimeters thick. This is 5 millimeters thick. So you can see there that's a significant difference there in size, and so there's really a lot going on here. Of course, the price is quite different as well. Currently, the tourbillon version of the Octo Finissimo is the most expensive, and there is a platinum version as well as this pink gold version. Let's put it on the wrist because it's quite elegant, and I really love how the alligator strap tapers into something very, very wearable on the wrist. So there's the Octo Finissimo tourbillon on the wrist, looking lovely. One of the issues is there's a glossy dial with glossy, very thin hour markers, as well as hands, and so in certain lights, the hands can kind of blur away. But the good news is the tourbillon doesn't blur away, and you can always see the tourbillon. The Octo case transforms itself very nicely into this thin profile because here is the thicker version of the Octo. It's a very architected case. There's many levels and angles. There's a very distinctive bezel, and there's all types of combination of circles and various sharp corners that I didn't think would necessarily translate into such a thin profile, but I think it really works well. And even in these thin dimensions, I think Bulgari did a very good job at maintaining the essence of the Octo case, and in some ways actually improving upon it. You barely feel this thing on the wrist. It not only looks good, but feels very good as well. So again, this is the Bulgari BVL 268 manually wound tourbillon movement, thinnest tourbillon movement in the world at 1.95 millimeters thick, power reserve of 55 hours, and this version in platinum is $138,000. In pink gold, I'm not exactly sure. I'm guessing it's just a slightly bit less. Moving slightly more accessible, but obviously still very luxurious, are the sort of two standard versions of the Octo Finissimo. These do not have a tourbillon, rather you have the time with a subsidiary seconds dial, and on the back of the movement you have a very handy power reserve indicator, which I find to be great. This movement is the Bulgari in-house made BVL 128. What's interesting about this movement is that it's actually a little bit thicker than the tourbillon, not by much, but 1.95 millimeters on the tourbillon versus 2.23 millimeters thick here. Functionally speaking, you're not really going to make a difference. The watches are essentially the same thickness on the wrist. What I'm wearing here is not a steel version, but this is in fact the platinum version, and all that's available now in the Octo Finissimo is the pink gold version as well as this platinum version. I'm not a big fan of platinum because frankly it kind of looks like steel. Even white gold makes a little bit more sense, but platinum is the most noble of all luxury metals, so there's value in it there. And again, the finishing on platinum looks a little bit different. What really, makes a platinum watch stand out is when you hold it, it feels heavier. But again, because this is so thin, you'll know it's platinum versus steel. But again, there's not an enormous amount of platinum. This is going to be a little bit more suitable for daily wear. I like versus the Tourbillon, that is. Again, you have the same wonderful look on the wrist, excellent case. The off-centered subsidiary seconds hand creates what I call a little bit of design controversy, a little bit of asymmetry that draws the eye, creates a little bit of fascination. This is, again, a manually wound movement. This operates at 4 hertz with 70 hours of power reserve, which is again very impressive given the very thin profile of the case. I believe there's plastic on here, sorry, it wasn't looking good. Ah yes, there we go. So you can see just how nicely the movement is finished, and even though it's a very thin movement, it's a very wide movement, so there's a lot of space for Bulgari to work with. And so here you have, of course, the regulation system, here you have the power reserve indicator, here you have the mainspring barrel. So taken together, this is just a very elegant movement, but also because it had a lot of space to work in, you don't really see any sacrifices. And again, making a very thin movement is significantly harder because of tolerances than a thicker movement that has a lot more space between the parts. So again, this is the platinum version of the Octo Finissimo. Then you have the 18 karat pink gold version, which again is the same thing but in pink gold. And again, depending on what you like or what your budget is, these are going to be of various appeal to you. Honestly, I can't say one looks better than the other one. Of course, with pink gold or yellow gold or rose gold, when you wear a watch like this, people know that it's gold, and that's something that you want to show off, I guess, if you spent the money on gold. With platinum, you have a little bit more under the radar look. Also, platinum watches and white gold watches tend to look a little bit better with what I call tuxedo attire. So if you're wearing all black and white, or mostly black and white, having a sort of more gray-toned or monochromatic watch like this makes a little bit more sense from a fashion perspective than something like this, which is a little bit more showy because of the pink gold color. Again, you have some of the same issues with legibility, because as you can see as I'm turning the watch in various light, elements of the dial which are polished tend to go out. And again, it's a trade-off because Bulgari knows specifically that there's going to be a little bit of extra shine on those hands, which gives it more of a sort of showy look to it, but there is, of course, a little bit of sacrifice in terms of legibility. If you want a sports watch which is legible all the time, Bulgari's got plenty of options for you. So again, these are the Bulgari Octo Finissimo watches, the Tourbillon, and the standard manually wound ones. I like these watches because they not only sort of indicate the very high skill and prowess of Bulgari's watchmaking, but also excellence in design. These are very refined timepieces, and they're also original. There isn't other stuff out there like this. You don't look at this and think to yourself, oh, I'll get the comparable watch from this brand or this other brand. Not just in terms of the look, but in terms of the movement. There's a lot of unique features here, which I think help separate the strengths of the Bulgari brand. I mentioned the price for the Tourbillon that in platinum was $138,000. Not sure of the price in pink gold. The pink gold version of the standard Bulgari Octo Finissimo is $22,900, and this platinum version here is $29,800. And you can see the full review on aBlogtoWatch. Thanks.